Imagine walking into a sprawling, modern supermarket. You stand in the aisle, choosing between Coke or Pepsi, Apple or Samsung, Ford or Chevrolet. You feel empowered. You believe you have a free choice. But the chilling truth is, no matter which product you place in your basket, the exact same invisible hand profits. This invisible hand does not belong to a sovereign government, an elected parliament, or a tyrannical king. It belongs to a single, faceless corporation managing well over $10 trillion in assets. It is an entity so unfathomably powerful that it quietly dictates the fate of entire nations. Welcome to the invisible empire of BlackRock. If you trace the labyrinthine, financial networks of the global supply chain, you will quickly discover all roads lead back to one towering, obsidian skyscraper in Manhattan. This is not a conspiracy theory born in the dark corners of the internet. It is a documented, undeniable mathematical reality. Throughout human history, we have seen massive concentrations of wealth and influence. The Medici family financed the Renaissance, manipulating popes and kings. The Dutch East India Company commanded private armies and conquered continents. John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil monopolized the industrial lifeblood of the modern era. Yet, all of those historical behemoths pale in comparison to the sheer gravitational pull of BlackRock. If BlackRock were a sovereign country, its assets under management would make it the third largest economy on the planet, trailing only behind the United States and China. They are the ultimate apex predator of capitalism. To truly understand the genesis of this colossal, world-eating machine, we must rewind the clock to the excessive greed of 1986. Larry Fink, a brilliant and aggressive young trader at the investment bank First Boston, was sitting on top of the financial world. He was the golden boy of Wall Street. Fink was a pioneer. He helped invent the mortgage-backed security, a financial instrument that bundled individual home loans into tradable assets. This innovation turned illiquid debt into a roaring river of cash. He was practically printing money for his firm, earning immense respect, astronomical bonuses, and dangerous hubris. But in the world of high finance, pride always precedes a devastating fall. Blended by a long streak of victories, Fink's department made a catastrophic miscalculation regarding future interest rates. The market moved against them with ruthless efficiency, and the seemingly invincible trader was caught entirely off guard. In a single, bloody quarter, Fink's desk blowed over $100 million. Overnight, the golden boy was transformed into a toxic pariah. His colleagues turned their backs, his mentors abandoned him, and the firm he had enriched essentially forced him out. He left Wall Street in utter disgrace. That humiliating defeat could have been the end of his story. Instead, it birthed a dark and powerful revelation. Wandering in professional exile, Fink realized his fatal flaw. He had been so obsessed with maximizing potential returns that he completely ignored the catastrophic mechanics of risk. He vowed, with an almost pathological intensity, that he would never be blindsided again. He decided that understanding and quantifying risk was the only true currency in the universe. This singular, burning obsession to map out every possible failure would eventually change the fundamental architecture of the global economy. In 1988, fueled by this desire for absolute control, Fink gathered a small circle of loyal colleagues. They approached Steve Schwarzman, the ambitious founder of the private equity giant Blackstone. Under the Blackstone umbrella, Fink established a new asset management division, promising a revolutionary approach to handling institutional money. Their core philosophy was radical. They didn't just want to place smart bets to make their clients wealthy. They wanted to mathematically eradicate uncertainty. They sought to build a system so perceptive that it could see the financial future by crunching infinite variations of the past and present. To achieve this god-like omniscience, they began building a technological marvel. They called it Aladdin, the asset, liability, debt, and derivative investment network. Initially, it was just a risk management tool, but it soon evolved into a colossal supercomputer complex, tirelessly monitoring every single micro fluctuation in the global markets. Aladdin uses Monte Carlo simulations, running millions of terrifying historical scenarios, from the collapse of the Soviet Union to sudden oil embargoes. It analyzes how every stock, bond, and currency would react to global warfare, pandemics, or political assassinations. It systematically removes human emotion, fear, and greed from the equation. By 1994, the partnership fractured permanently. Fink and his team spun off, fiercely independent, and rebranded as BlackRock, while the rest of the financial sector gambled recklessly on .com startups and exotic derivatives. BlackRock quietly expanded its technological fortress. They were steadily becoming the central nervous system of global finance. Then came the apocalyptic crash of 2008. The global banking architecture collapsed under the crushing weight of toxic subprime mortgages. Centuries-old institutions vanished overnight. The global economy was staring into an abyss not seen since the Great Depression. Panic consumed the streets of New York to the halls of Washington. The US government, the Federal Reserve, and the Treasury were completely blind. They had no idea how much toxic debt existed or where it was buried. In their desperate, terrified search for clarity, the most powerful government on earth realized only one entity had the map. Washington turned to Larry Fink. Because Aladdin had been ruthlessly tracking every bad loan and derivative, BlackRock was hired to price the toxic assets of imploding giants. They were handed the exclusive keys to execute the greatest financial bailout in human history. This historical moment marked BlackRock's ascension from a massive asset manager to an indispensable shadow state. By cleaning up the radioactive mess of the crisis, they absorbed unimaginable power, unparalleled insider knowledge, and the ultimate trust of the sovereign state. They essentially became the fourth branch of government. Passive investing sounds entirely harmless. Millions of ordinary people put their retirement savings into index funds that automatically track the entire market. But here is the terrifying reality. When you buy an index fund, you do not own the voting rights to those underlying shares. The asset manager does. Today, BlackRock does not merely manage $10 trillion of their clients' money. Through the ubiquitous software of Aladdin, they direct the risk and investment strategy for over $21 trillion of global assets. That astronomical figure dwarfs the GDP of most civilized nations combined. Together with Vanguard and State Street, BlackRock forms what is known as the Big Three. If you analyze the shareholder registry of almost any major publicly traded corporation on the planet, Apple, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, Pfizer, you will find these three monolithic titans sitting at the very top of the list. They own substantial stakes in the media networks you consume, the agricultural conglomerates feeding your family, the energy grids powering your home, and the pharmaceutical giants keeping you alive. It is a terrifying corporate oligopoly, masterfully hidden in plain sight. They are the universal landlords of the modern world. This unprecedented concentration of ownership grants Larry Fink a level of geopolitical influence that most presidents can only dream of. When BlackRock sends a letter to corporate CEOs demanding structural changes, it is not interpreted as a friendly suggestion. It is received as a royal decree from the master of capital. In recent years, this vast structural power has been aggressively utilized to reshape society itself. Through ESG scoring, environmental, social, and governance metrics, BlackRock forces international companies to bend to highly specific political and ecological agendas, comply with the algorithm, or face being mercilessly starved of crucial investment capital. Harsh critics argue this is a dangerous, silent subversion of the democratic process. Unelected, unaccountable billionaires and their supercomputers are systematically bypassing elected governments and legislative bodies to rewrite the fundamental rules of human civilization. The free market is completely dead. It is now meticulously managed by synthetic intelligence. Yet, BlackRock steadfastly claims they are simply fulfilling their fiduciary duty. They argue they are protecting their clients' long-term financial interests against existential threats like climate change, social unrest, and geopolitical instability. They position themselves as the benevolent, responsible custodians of our planetary future. But who elected them to play God? The traditional line between public government and private corporation has been thoroughly erased. The revolving door spins faster than ever, Top executives from BlackRock frequently rotate into the highest echelon of the US Treasury, the Federal Reserve, and the White House. It is a seamless, unbreakable continuum of absolute power. This is the ultimate evolution of debt. By ensuring you never acquire hard equity, you remain permanently dependent on the system. Your entire life becomes a stream of micro transactions flowing upwards to a technological elite. You are no longer a participant in the economy. You are the product being harvested. You are transitioning into a subscription-based existence. You will rent your home, lease your car, stream your entertainment, and subscribe to your software. You will own absolutely nothing, and the dividends of your perpetual monthly payments will flow directly into the massive index funds managed by Larry Fink's empire. We are witnessing the terrifying dawn of a new technocratic feudalism. The masses remain perpetually distracted by the loud, superficial theater of bipartisan politics and social media outrages. Meanwhile, the true, unbreakable architecture of control is hidden deep in server farms, passive index funds, and complex algorithmic trading models. Larry Fink's ultimate, psychological revenge for his humiliating failure in 1986 was not simply about acquiring unimaginable wealth. It was about meticulously eliminating the very possibility of losing it by owning the entire board. When your algorithms control every piece on the chessboard, risk simply ceases to exist. The matrix of our modern world is entirely real, and its source code is written in financial derivatives and ESG scores. You are not a citizen, you are a data point. We are all just dividends quietly feeding the bottom line of the world's most powerful, invisible portfolio. The past is never truly gone. It simply changes currencies. If you want to understand the hidden forces shaping our future, subscribe to the Macro Historian. We do not just read history. We decode the mechanics of global power. Until the next chapter,